The following presentation was given at the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Tupelo in Tupelo, Mississippi. All are welcome to join us on Sundays at 11 a.m. at 1301 Marshall Street in Tupelo.
Have you ever seen the religious art that depicts rays of light streaming down through the sun, through the clouds? I understand why this type of art is so attractive to people looking for a connection with something larger than themselves. The sun is a source of higher power. In fact, it's the source of all life. To have that awesome power reaching down, streaming down toward me, what a great image. I have a song that's kind of like that painting. It reminds me that I'm part of something larger than myself. It sings, "We remain faithful to the work that must be done." And it says that over and over again. We remain faithful to the work that must be done. It's a spiritual about love and activism and the needs of the world. It reminds me that I'm called to sacred service. This morning's reading reminded us, what we love, we empower. Thomas Starr King, he was a he was a Unitarian and he was a Universalist, community minister in the 1860s. He's been credited with saving California for the Union. What that means is that he lobbied and he preached and he campaigned and he educated so that California would incorporate as a free state instead of a slave state. He said, "Your good resolutions, your efforts to enlarge and cultivate your soul, your nourishment of charity are pouring a stream of light and hope onto the future. Or rather, they're making your soul buoyant and translucent for the serene atmosphere and spiritual sunbeams of eternity." Let me tell you the story of how I ended up a minister. It came in 3 parts. First, picture 8-year-old me compelled to do a funeral for a dead bird in my backyard. I used a children's book of the illustrated Beatitudes. I recruited my sister and conducted my first spiritual rite of passage, a milestone ministry. Second, my hurt heard the demand to offer spiritual direction while I sat with a college classmate who was considering suicide. I listened to his story and I knew the ways his life was precious. And I understood that one true thing that I must offer to the world. Third, years into a career as a computer trainer at a university, I received an unavoidable instruction from divine love, like I hadn't heard it yet, right? I needed to pursue UU community ministry. I saw the message in an art project. I'd drawn a tree of my life. I saw the message in the roots, the central heart trunk, the branches reaching out, and the fruits, the gifts I had. Looking at the whole tree, I knew I was made for ministry. This knowing, we often in the ministry biz, we call that the call. I want to hear yours. What is your call? Is it earth ministry, air ministry, water ministry, fire ministry? What is yours? I want you to roll back the stone that you've been behind and consider coming out of the cave and answering the call. When I completed the requirements, the many requirements to be a Unitarian Universalist minister, the expected path was to search for and match with a congregation somewhere. UU ministers usually search out a congregation where they can enter into a ministry partnership. My heart had other plans. Joseph Campbell says, if you can see your path laid out in front of you, step by step, it is not your path. Your path is the one you create with every step you make. I had a lot of steps to go before I let go of the expected path. I was initially sidetracked from the path that was laid out for me by my mom's diagnosis. I knew I had limited time with her before her death, and I was unwilling to jump into a pulpit. So I started forging a ministry from scratch. And over the years, over many other events, it became clear that my non-traditional ministry was the one true thing that I needed to do. In hindsight, I realized that following the usual process has never been my way. I'm not sure why I was so surprised. Consider the paths in your life. Where did you follow expectations? Were there moments when you discovered you were taking side trips and detours off that expected route? Did you discover those side trips were in fact the roads to what you are supposed to do? So doctors can be generalists or specialists, and so too can ministers. I think of the parish ministers as the generalists, the GP, and the community ministers as the specialists. In religious traditions, there are many religious leaders, many ministries. We in UU congregations, we're used to the idea of a minister who's the leader of the religious life of a congregation. That's the parish minister. Parish minister preaches, brings spiritual grounding to board and committee work, performs rites of passage, counsels, encourages, visits with members in time of need, all while representing the values of the faith to the community. Hospital and prison chaplains. They are specialists who focus on visiting with people when they're in times of crisis. Ministers of education focus on fostering lifespan faith development. And in many religious traditions, religious professionals follow a vocation to contemplation and reflection. They study and teach and publish, like Thomas Merton or Thich Nhat Hanh. Others are led to be prophets who speak truth to power, like the nuns on the bus and Reverend Barber. Others bring their religious service to the streets of their cities or foster forming religious communities like San Francisco's Faithful Fools and Louisa May Alcott's dad. These kinds of ministries were not as well known among Unitarian Universalists, and that's a shame. These folks do good and important work. They inspire people outside of the established, recognized religious communities. They inspire people to live their best lives. This is sacred service. It can be hard to let go of the idea that ministry is only something that happens inside the congregation's walls, or that chaplaincy only happens in the institutions like prisons and hospitals. But sacred service has many facets. What do? I help justice seekers who've reached the end of their rope. I give givers who are disconnected or depleted help to find their particular gifts in flow with their source. I'm helping them recharge their spiritual GPS. It's a personal one-on-one ministry much of the time, so I enjoy traveling as an itinerant minister, offering waylighting to congregations as a guest in the pulpit or a retreat facilitator. Is this ministry? You bet your booties it is. Does anyone else do similar work? Sure. Spiritual directors, soul friends, vocational counselors, life coaches, therapists are all doing similar work. And there's community ministers all over the world doing unique ministries. UU ministries that might be as outside the box as mine, or even more so. Reverend Nathan Hollister founds small religious communities in big cities, designed for struggling 20 and 30-somethings. They share meals, They help one another out with rent parties. They do social service and justice work in the community together. Reverend Elizabeth Nguyen serves as the senior strategist for Side with Love. She works with the UU ministers and the lay people who are doing justice work at the state level, at the congregational level. Reverend Jason Shelton, he composes music. You'll see his name in our hymnal. He leads choirs. He travels to congregations to share the good message of Unitarian Universalism. Reverend Karen Herring has a writer's ministry. She wrote the book, Writing to Heal the Soul. Reverend Leela Sinha consults with small businesses to help them remember that their employees and clients are whole people, mind, body, heart, and spirit. Reverend Aaron Walters works with youth through the YMCA, and our own Edie Love works with the LGBTQ+ community through an organization offering healing and advocating for survivors of domestic violence. These folks are all ordained ministers. Well, Edie will be tomorrow. Their ministries are their whole professions, but you don't have to be an ordained professional minister to do ministry. Teachers, carpenters, scientists, parents, volunteers, museum curators, farmers, eco-warriors, justice advocates, everyone has a particular ministry, a way in which we serve the world and contribute our own gifts. It may not be a part of your paid job, but you are called to do something. How do you live your UU faith outside these walls? Each ministry offered by a UU is uniquely Unitarian Universalist. We bring the message that the divine abandons no one, that what you do in the world matters and you don't have to do it alone. Each of us brings our own unique gifts, knowledge, skills, and passions, and each of us celebrates a free and responsible search for meaning. Each of us is unwavering that every person is of worth. Even when people at my retreats or appointments or worship services don't join UU congregations, they become allies in the UU experiment in the world, learning to love alike, even when we do not think alike. In each of our ministries, we are allies for the marginalized and oppressed. We are helping clients, community members, congregants, retreat participants to actively love your neighbor, to practice true hospitality. I've heard ministers with long records of service say, if you want to become a minister, make sure there is nothing else you can possibly do first. In my case, it turns out there really is nothing else I can do. I'll do this even if it means I'll live in poverty, if it asks sacrifices from my family, if it breaks my heart over and over. So now we know that it's non-negotiable, and you may ask again, why? Because when I go a week without clients or without writing a blog or a sermon or a class, my world feels wrong. I know that when I'm able to give of what I have to the world, it feeds me and I come alive. When I hear a client experience an aha, I say to myself, Dayenu, which means it is enough. It's knowing that placing your energy into something meaningful is an incomparably good feeling. What life does it bring into the world? Well, each person who can leave my office better equipped to give to the world without burnout is a ripple in the proverbial pond. It's a privilege to be able to do what we're doing at all, and we all have something propping us up. Everyone needs help, and community ministers have to find a lot more of our own help. Congregations can live their mission by supporting community ministers, as you here are doing. To allow the UU movement to grow, to help change the face of ministry, to make a difference in places where the institutions cannot go, to serve the people who cannot or will not walk into our doors perhaps because of religious wounding, perhaps because of economic status, to lead our faith outside the walls and into the hearts and the lived experience of the community, to strengthen our connections with other faiths and moral and spiritual movements working for love and for justice. Those fingers of sunlight that stretch past the clouds, a metaphor for the light of God reaching down from the heavens. Well, each of us is the light of God. Each of us can reach out and make a difference. How desperately our UU values are needed in this time. Our congregations are houses for these UU values, and so are our lives. And every congregant and every community minister carries those values out of the building, out of the house, into the streets, the highways and the byways. We don't need to wait for people to find us. We can, like streams of light, go out and bring hope and not hell. So mote it be.
Thanks for listening to the UUC of Tupelo's podcast. You can find us at uuctupeloms.org, on Facebook by searching for UUC Tupelo, or contact us by email at uuctupelocom@gmail.com. That's uuctupelocom@gmail.com. The UUC of Tupelo is a welcoming congregation who accept all people, regardless of creed, color, national origin, gender, or gender identity. We hope you have enjoyed this podcast, and as you head on your way, go in peace, believe in peace, create peace.